easily trade you for someone much hotter and more successful. Tonight, she whispered, her voice laced with that familiar stinging arrogance. We were standing in our living room, the air thick with the smell of cheap perfume. You, and the heavy silence of a betrayal that had just been dragged into the light. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply looked at her, saw the pathetic, hollow ego staring back, and smiled a slow, genuine smile that seemed to confuse her more than a screaming match ever could. I leaned in and replied, "You know, Nora, let's find out if that's actually true. Hey, Reddit, grab some popcorn. This story isn't just about a breakup. It's about watching a narcissist realize they aren't the main character in everyone else's movie. It started about a year and a half ago. I was 33, working as an industrial designer, steady life, decent savings, and honestly a bit too naive for my own good. I met Nora on a dating app, and the initial spark was an inferno. She was stunning. Beauty. The kind of girl who turned heads even when she wasn't trying. We spent our first few weeks tethered to our phones, exchanging texts until 2 a.m., fueled by that intoxicating early-stage adrenaline. First date. At that quiet Italian bistro downtown felt like a movie scene. 3 hours of conversation that didn't stutter once. She kissed me first, and by the end of the month, we were official. Perfect. But there was a subtle rot in the foundation from the start. She loved the attention she got from other men, and she'd often recount these little encounters to me, watching my face to see if it'd crack. One night, 4 months in, speak about those hypothetical hall passes, you know. That stupid game where you pick a celebrity you'd be allowed to sleep with. I tossed out Jennifer Lawrence, trying to keep it light. Nora, dead serious, said, Ryan Gosling, of course. Then she looked at me with this terrifying cold sincerity and added, honestly, I don't think there are many guys, celebrity or not, who would actually say no to me. I laughed it off. But the sound died in my throat. That wasn't self-confidence. That was a dangerous, unchecked entitlement. A month later, I was dragged into the Lion's den, a dinner with her circle. There was Olivia, the bitter, fest, divorced friend who treated sarcasm like a personality trait. Natasha, a woman who treated gossip like a competitive sport. And Maeve, the influencer who lived behind a phone screen, documenting a life that was mostly filtered. They looked at me like I was a charity case. Industrial designer, Olivia scoffed, her tone biting. That sounds so predictable and safe. It was a code word for boring. When they found out we met on an app, they mocked the audacity of me, even swiping right on her. Nora didn't defend me. She just sipped her wine and joined in the laughter. I realized then that they didn't just dislike. Methy had collectively decided. Accessory. A temporary fixture in Nora's curated world. Things stayed civil on the surface, but the rot began to spread. Her phone became a guarded fortress, screen always face down. Work hours grew longer, feed more erratic. October hit, and the late nights became a systematic cycle. Monday, client issues. Tuesday, catering disaster. Wednesday, the classic traffic excuse. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. The digital ledger. Dates, times, and those flimsy, paper-thin excuses. Then came the night she walked in at 9:15 p.m. on a Wednesday, glowing with a secret smile. Hey, Nora, good day? I asked from the couch. She jumped, looking like a deer in headlights. Oh yeah, long but productive, she stuttered. What kept you? Just. Grabbed a drink with a coworker, she muttered, not meeting my eyes. Oh yeah? Who? Just Brad. You wouldn't know him. First time his name had ever surfaced. And the way she dismissed it was so calculated, so casual, that it chilled me to the bone. For 2 weeks, Brad became a ghost I couldn't pin down. I stayed silent, documenting every lie. Then, at a dinner party at Olivia's, the facade finally shattered. Maeve was scrolling through her feed and blurted out, Nora, you and Brad were absolute fire at that conference last week. Photos are all over the company page. The room went deathly silent. Nora turned pale, her eyes darting to me. I just took a slow sip of my wine and smiled. Conference photos? I asked, my voice calm, almost polite. To see them. I didn't wait for her. I pulled up her company's social media on my own phone, And there they were, photos of them not working, but intimate, close, indisputable. The table went quiet,
Tried to scramble.
starting to spin a lie about how they were just setup shots, but I cut her off. Save it, Nora. I stood up, reached into my pocket, and threw my keys on the table.
Cracking your Brad excuses for weeks.
I didn't come here to argue. I came here to tell you that the apartment lease is in my name, and you have until tomorrow to pack your bags. Olivia tried to interject. Edward,
Don't be so dramatic.
I turned to her. You said I knew my role, Olivia. You were right. My role was being the guy who funded your dinners while you mocked me. That role is over. The aftermath was glorious.
I didn't fall apart.
I renovated the apartment, I focused on my health, and 3 months later, I started dating someone. Odd ID met through a mutual professional contact model. Intelligent, private, and the exact opposite of Nora's vapid circle. When Nora found out, she went ballistic. She texted me, calling me insecure, saying I'd never find anyone better than her. I replied with one photo. Me and my new partner at a gala.
Leaked into her circle.
Maeve, who lived for drama, couldn't help but post about it. Nora's own friends turned on her because they were jealous that I had upgraded while Nora was left scrambling for Brad.
To be a dead-end fling.
Her little social empire collapsed under the weight of her own lies and the jealousy of her best friends. Nora tried to reach out twice more desperate, crying. I didn't even read the messages. Some people think revenge is about getting even. It's not. Revenge is becoming the best version of yourself and leaving them to watch from the sidelines as you succeed without them.
Bing feud.
Nora wanted a trophy, but she lost a man. And the best part, I never even had to raise my voice. Justice doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs to be lived. The air in the living room was thick,
Suffocatingly still.
Nora stood there, clutching a towel, her vibrant smile replaced by a mask of confusion that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey babe, how was work? She asked. Her voice light, practiced, and utterly hollow.
Bent.
I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I'd shared a bed with for 3 years.
Cruised.
I saw a stranger who had been auditioning for a role in my life while living a completely different script behind my back. We need to talk, I said, my voice sounding foreign even to my own ears, cold and detached.
Faced.
Her face shifted, the casual ease evaporating as she sensed the sudden temperature drop in the room. About what? She asked, sitting down on the edge of the sofa, keeping a calculated distance between us.
He didn't answer.
With words. I simply unlocked my phone, opened the gallery of screenshots I had spent hours obsessing over, and slid the device across the coffee table toward her. She picked it up, her movements fluid,
Dismissive.
until her eyes hit the first image. Then, the second, then, the 10th, her hands began to tremble, a frantic, rhythmic shaking that made the screen blur against her palms. The blood drained from her face,
BT.
leaving her ghostly, a stark contrast to the lively woman who had been singing in the shower just minutes ago. By the time she reached the message about me being just a roommate who pays half the bills, she stopped scrolling entirely. Her gaze snapped up to mine, desperate and wild. Edward, wait, this isn't what it looks like, she stammered, her voice cracking in a performance of sudden artificial terror. I remained silent, watching her, letting the weight of her own words settle into the silence between us. Okay, she tried again, her composure fracturing further. Yes, Brad and I have been talking, but nothing physical happened, I swear. Felt a sickening wave of pity, not for her, but for the version of me that had trusted her. These messages are we were just joking around. You know how we get, she pleaded. I stared at her, unblinking.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, fine, she blurted out, changing her tactic as she realized the first lie was falling apart. We kissed a few times, but that's it. I was confused. I made a mistake. I still didn't say a word.
Edward.
Please? Just say something, she cried, her voice rising in pitch, trying to bait me into a fight, into a negotiation. We're done, I said, the words hitting the air like a gavel. You're not staying here tonight. She froze, her eyes widening in genuine shock. as if the concept of consequences never occurred to her. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the thrumming in my ears. You need to leave, I repeated, my tone as firm as iron. Pack what you can carry, Nora. She stood up abruptly, her face turning from pale to a flushed, angry red. You can't just kick me out, she shouted, her voice laced with indignation. This is my place too, Edward. I looked at her calmly, my pulse steady for the first time in weeks. No, Nora, I said clearly. The lease is in my name, and it has been since the day we moved in because your credit was a disaster.
Remember.
She opened her mouth, then closed it, the logic clearly hitting her like a physical blow. You're overreacting, she hissed, shifting back into the gaslighting rhythm shed used so many times before. Let me explain.
Thinking clearly.
No. I cut her off, stepping toward her. If you refuse to leave, I'll call building security, and if I have to, I'll call the police to escort you out. Her eyes blazed. This is emotional abuse,
Feet.
she spat, trying to flip the narrative, trying to make herself the victim once again. You're just trying to punish me for a lapse in judgment. I didn't respond to her accusation.
Fend.
I walked past her into the bedroom and began pulling her clothes from the closet, throwing them onto the bed in a heap. She followed me, hovering at the door, her voice a desperate, manic melody of excuses.
Being so controlling right now,
she screamed. I didn't mean any of it, you know. I love you. I just made a mistake. We can fix this. I stopped, holding a handful of her dresses, and finally looked her straight in the eyes.
Make a mistake, Nora,
I said, my voice low and devoid of anger, just pure, crystalline truth. You made a series of choices, and today you're just reaping the consequences of every single one of them. She fell silent,
for the weight of the moment,
finally crushing her. The game was over, and for the first time in months, I could finally breathe. This is a complete original script designed for high-retention storytelling.
thing say.
They a betrayal is like a mirror it shatters, and no matter how hard you try to glue the pieces back together, you'll always see the cracks. I stood in my living room, watching the woman.
Beam.
I thought I was going to marry pack her entire life into a suitcase. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she'd lost her safety net. And in that moment,
He's the most dangerous person.
isn't the one who stabs you in the jaw back. It's the one who convinces everyone else that you were the one holding the knife. She followed me into the bedroom,
You.
her voice trembling her. Maybe just practiced. Edward, please. You're being so controlling. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I didn't even turn around. I just kept folding shirts.
E.T.
You called me a roommate who pays the bills, I said. My voice, eerily calm. You told him I was boring and safe. You told him you'd deal with me eventually when the timing was right. She stopped.
Feet.
The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. I didn't mean it like that, she whispered. I turned, looked her dead in the eye, and handed her the bag. You meant every syllable.
The rest of your things this weekend, but only under supervision. Get out.
She pulled out her phone, her hands shaking not from heartbreak, but from the frantic need to control the narrative. Within 2 minutes,
You team was in motion.
Nasha was coming to pick her up. Olivia offered her a place to crash. Medivh was on standby. It was a synchronized dance of toxic loyalty. Can I just stay until they get here?
He pleaded.
Her voice turning pathetic. It's cold outside. The lobby, I said, pointing to the door. Now, she looked at me one last time, waiting for me to break, to apologize to Cave. I didn't.
Think.
I opened the door and stepped aside. When the door clicked shut, I didn't just lock it, called a locksmith before sunrise. By 10 p.m., my phone was a war zone. Unknown numbers. Dozens of them.
Fim, you're really going to destroy us over one mistake.
One text read, Men always overreact, another chimed in. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I simply screenshotted every single word and dropped it into a folder labeled evidence. Then I hit block. By midnight, I had blocked 5 different numbers. But the real show was just beginning. Olivia messaged me.
Playing the role of the concerned friend.
Edward, she's devastated. Can you just talk to her?
I sent her one.
Screenshot the one where Nora called me a boring roommate. Silence. Then a block, I cut them all off. Nora.
Fosh, Maeve, Olivia.
I erased them from my digital life like a virus. The fallout, the social media war. The next morning, the passive-aggressive campaign went live. Maeve posted a story.
Some people would rather punish than forgive.
Normalize grace and growth. No names mentioned. Just enough to make everyone ask, who are they talking about? By noon, the Whisper network was buzzing.
Friend.
Connor called me, his voice hesitant. Hey man, I heard things got heated, that you kicked her out in the middle of the night. I sighed. Connor, did they tell you why I kicked her out?
Fed. It was a misunderstanding about some texts.
A misunderstanding? I laughed. That's their word for 4 months of infidelity while she planned my replacement. I have the screenshots, Connor. The line went quiet.
Field was crumbling.
One phone call at a time.
Stopped.
When the Innocent Victim Act stopped working, the mask finally fell off.
Stop.
The texts from the unknown numbers got sharper, colder.
Finding.
Someone who puts up with your boring routine. One read, I settled for you, Edward. You should be the one who's grateful. I screenshotted those too. Insurance, because I knew they weren't done. They moved to the social media Face the Reply Speak posts about toxic masculinity and fragile egos. People unfollowed me. People stopped liking my posts. I didn't fight it. I let the weeds grow,
Fierce.
waiting for the right moment to pull them out by the root. Then they went for my career. A calendar invite popped up. Chat check-in. No context. I walked into that office knowing exactly what awaited me.
Figs them.
The HR rep sat there, professional and calm. This is just protocol, Edward, she began, sliding a printed thread of social media posts across the desk. It's been brought to our attention that there are
Fiend.
concerns regarding your conduct in your personal relationships. I sat back, folded my arms, and let them finish their speech. They thought they had me. They thought I was just a controlling, fragile man.
Forgotten one thing.
She has sent those final, abusive, mocking texts from her own Deceth one, linked to the evidence folder ID been building for weeks. I placed my phone on the desk. Before we continue,
Fed.
my voice steady, I think you should see the entire thread, including the part where my ex-partner and her friends decided to coordinate a targeted harassment campaign against my reputation.
Fiction.
The look on the HR rep's face shifted from protocol to shock as she scrolled. The smear campaign wasn't just drama. It was documentation of a woman who had lied, cheated,
Beakfee.
and then attempted to destroy my livelihood when she was caught. By the time I walked out of that office, the investigation was closed. Attempts to frame me had backfired so spectacularly that Shed essentially handed me the keys to my own vindication. I didn't need to say a word to the others. The truth has a way of rising to the surface.
Especially when you stop trying to keep it down.
I walked out of the building, into the cool air. No more excuses. No more drama. Just the silence of a life reclaimed. They wanted a war.
Beamed it.
They didn't realize they were fighting someone who had already finished the game. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's just keeping your head down, documenting the truth,
Patient, and letting the people who want to destroy you destroy themselves.
The HR office felt colder than usual. I walked in, knowing exactly why I was there. The representative sat across from me.
Fit.
Her face a mask of practiced professionalism. This is just standard protocol, she began, her voice steady and calm. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, listening, letting her finish the script.
We have received a series of serious allegations from an external party,
She continued, checking her notes. Claims of harassment against an ex-partner, keeping them from shared property and general controlling behavior.
She looked up at me.
Do you have anything you would like to share regarding these accusations? I didn't panic. I simply pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked the evidence folder I had prepared.
Everything documented,
I said, placing the screen in front of her. First, there's the initial message from Ashley, where she confessed to the affair and provided proof. Second,
here is a screenshot of Nora.
admitting I was just a roommate to her, and that she wanted to keep both of us. And finally, a list of harassment attempts from Nora.
including 5 different burner numbers.
She used to contact me after I made it clear we were finished. Dot. Oh, and here is a text from Olivia trying to guilt trip me into talking to her.
The representative scrolled through the files.
Her expression shifting from skepticism to genuine concern. Thank you for this, she said finally. This is incredibly helpful context.
Benzine.
I will note this in the report and follow up with you shortly. Understood, I replied. In the meantime, I advise you to cut all contact and continue documenting any further interference, she added.
Already.
Ahead of you on that, I told her. A few days later, the report was closed with no further action required. I sent a quick text to Connor. If anyone asks, I'm fine. If they push a story, I'm not playing their game.
Thingy.
They had tried to ruin my reputation, and they had failed. But something still nagged at the back of my mind. How did they always know where I was going to be? I had been careful. I hadn't posted a single thing online.
Decided to run a test.
I planned to go out for drinks on Thursday night, but I told 3 different people, 3 different locations. Connor got the quiet out-of-the-way coffee spot. Roman got the trendy new brewery downtown.
Then Ironside.
Derek, an acquaintance from Nora's work circles, got a sports bar near the stadium. I only went to the coffee shop with Connor. At 8:30, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Roman. Bro.
Guess who just walked in here filming with their phone?
It was Ironside, the exact location only Roman knew about, which meant Derek was the leak. I finished my coffee in total silence, drove home.
Waited until 10 o'clock.
Then, I typed a single message to Derek. 3 plans, 3 people. You were the only one who knew about this location. Lose my number. I blocked him before he could even start typing a lie.
Fixed.
2 months later, the high school reunion invitation landed on my desk. I almost tossed it in the trash, but some friends convinced me it would be good to get out for a night. So I went. I walked in late, grabbed a drink,
And stood near the name tags.
2 girls from my graduating class were whispering nearby. Is Melody coming? One asked. I don't know. She's incredibly busy, the other replied. Did you see her latest campaign?
She's a real model now.
Not just Instagram, but actual magazine covers. I remembered Melody. Tall, composed, always naturally cool. We had shared a few classes, but we were never close. I heard she's single.
First girl whispered.
Please. She's probably dating some A-list actor. The other laughed. I moved to the bar, keeping my back to the room. The conversation in the hall suddenly dipped. I turned slightly.
Here she was.
Melody walked in. Posture perfect, her face neutral yet radiating a certain warmth. She scanned the room, and for a split second, her eyes locked with mine. Her breath hitched.
Thing.
Her hand gripped her phone tight, and a smile flickered across her face before she quickly reset her expression.
I saw it. I didn't react.
20 minutes later, she drifted over to the bar. Edward? It's been ages. Melody?
Yeah.
It really has. We caught up on the basics, but she kept mentioning small, specific details about my life from a decade ago. You used to bring those homemade lunches, right? Your mom made the best sandwiches, she said.
You.
Her voice dropping to a softer tone. And you were in that design elective, the one where you built that lamp. It was too specific to be casual. Then, someone nearby mentioned Nora's name, referencing an old prom story.
Melody's entire face hardened.
Her jaw clenched, and her eyes turned cold for a second, before she smoothed her expression over and changed the subject. Later, I stepped outside for some air. I could see Nora's little crew gathered near the photo booth through the glass. They were huddled together, watching Melody, with Olivia talking animatedly while Natasha regarded on her phone. I stood in the shadows. The door clicked open, and Natasha stepped out. She froze when she saw me.
Edward?
Wow, I didn't think you'd be here. Yeah, I said, cold and short. She glanced back inside toward Melody. So Melody tours.
It's an interesting reunion, isn't it?
I stayed silent. Is she still carrying that torch for you, or did she finally move on? Natasha asked with a mocking smirk. Everyone knew, you know. She used to stare at you in every single class. It was actually kind of sad. She held up her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen, looking for a reaction. I looked her dead in the eye and laughed.
Think Shez watching me, Natasha?
Take a look at the window. Behind you. She turned, and her face dropped. Melody wasn't just looking at me. She was standing right behind Natasha,
Fold.
staring directly at the phone screen in Natasha's hand. Are you recording me, Natasha? Melody asked, her voice calm and terrifyingly sharp. Natasha fumbled, dropping her phone. I was just. Delete it, Melody said.
Think forward.
And while you're at it, tell Nora that I saw her fake report to HR months ago. I watched as the color drained from Natasha's face. The power dynamic had shifted in a single heartbeat.
Didn't need to say a word.
Justice didn't need to be loud, it just needed to be precise. I walked away, leaving them in the silence they deserved. Scene 1. The hookah reunion gone wrong. I stood near the edge of the patio,
Fist.
my drink barely touched, watching the crowd at our high school reunion. The air was heavy with forced nostalgia and stale perfume. My eyes wandered until they landed on Melody Torres. She looked exactly as she had years ago.
Folk lobe. Folk bob.
Nora, my ex, was standing nearby, her face twisted into a mask of polite indifference as she watched me watch Melody. Nora leaned in close to her friend Maeve,
Thinks.
whispering something sharp that made them both laugh, their eyes darting toward me. It was classic Nora dismissive, cold and calculated. But then, as if she realized she was being observed, Melody turned. She caught my gaze.
For a fleeting second, the professional veneer.
She wore like armor slipped, revealing something raw and vulnerable. She walked toward me, moving with a grace that silenced the room. Hey, she said, her voice a low.
Hum.
I saw you earlier. Didn't want to interrupt. I was just grabbing some fresh air, I replied, feeling the familiar tug of history between us. Me too, she admitted. It's a lot, isn't it? All these masks.
Each it.
I realized then that everyone had misread her in high school, including me. She hadn't been aloof. She had been quiet, observing, waiting for someone to actually see her. Do you want to grab coffee sometime? I asked,
You.
my heart hammering against my ribs.
Properly catch up.
She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Yeah, I'd love that. We started messaging that same night.
Used.
Long before our conversations turned into late-night FaceTime calls while she was in Milan for a shoot. The Skeek screen became our world, her hotel rooms, the chaos of Fashion Week,
Each.
the quiet exhaustion of a woman who was constantly being stared at but rarely seen. She was the opposite of Nora. With Nora, everything was a performance, a strategic play for social capital. With Melody, there were no games.
Boomin.
I hate this part, she sighed one night, staring at the camera from a messy hotel room in Tokyo, living out of a suitcase. People see the highlight reel, but they never see the loneliness. I see you, I said firmly.
He looked at me.
Truly looked at me, through the lens of her phone. That's why I like you, she whispered. You don't just see the model thing. 3 months later, I flew to Brussels to meet her on set. It was a world of lights,
You know say.
intensity, and controlled chaos. I took a few candid shots of her laughing, with the crew unfiltered, real and beautiful. Without thinking, I posted one to my close friend's story on Instagram. I forgot one crucial thing.
Vent.
Nora was still on that list. 2 hours later, my phone turned into a buzzing nightmare. Notifications, messages, and calls flooded in from numbers I didn't recognize. Who is that? Are you serious? You're dating her.
Usually.
I blocked them instantly, but the dam had already broken. Maeve and Olivia Nora's loyal shadows began a coordinated strike. They created a dozen fake accounts, flooding Melody's professional posts with subtle, toxic barbs.
Be nice to have everything handed to you. One comment read.
Hope he likes being your next victim, another hinted. It wasn't just online anymore. Natasha, another of Nora's inner circle,
Diesel.
tried to stage a coincidental run-in at a restaurant where she knew we'd be. She came over, phone camera already recording, trying to bait us into a confrontation. How does it feel to be the other woman, Melody? She sneered.
You.
Her voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. I stood up, my voice cold and steady. You're making a scene, Natasha. Leave, or I'll have the manager remove you. She looked stunned, then frustrated, and stomped out.
But the campaign against us was just getting started.
The real blow came via email. Melody received a message from a high-end skincare brand shed been working with for years.
I
Hi, Melody.
Phasm.
We've received multiple reports regarding controversy surrounding your personal life. Could you please provide context so we can address this? My blood ran cold. They were trying to ruin her career.
Finked.
They weren't just attacking her heart, they were attacking her livelihood.
Dut.
Melody sat on her sofa, her hands trembling slightly as she read the screen. This is it, she whispered, the light in her eyes dimming.
This is what I was afraid of.
One rumor, one smear campaign, and they cut you loose. I walked over and sat behind her, placing my hands on her shoulders. Don't let them, I said. You aren't the villain here.
Victim of a jealous ex-girlfriend who hasn't moved on in 5 years.
She looked at me, her jaw tightening. I'm not going to sit here and take it, she said, her voice turning steel hard. She opened her laptop and drafted a reply. Hi, team. I am currently the target of a coordinated harassment campaign led by a former acquaintance. I have documented every fake account, every threatening message,
And every attempt to sabotage my contracts.
I'm happy to share the evidence with your legal team. But I trust you won't allow unsubstantiated, malicious rumors to dictate our professional relationship. She hit send.
Eve.
The silence in the room was deafening. 3 days later, the brand replied. They didn't just stand by her, they offered to support her in taking legal action against the individuals involved.
But the true victory happened on a quiet Tuesday.
I received a notification that Nora had finally deactivated her primary Instagram account. The rumors stopped. The fake accounts went silent. Seemed that when you threaten someone's actual money and legal stand, the high school drama loses its charm. That evening, I met Melody at the airport. She walked out of the terminal, looking tired but free. She dropped her bags and walked straight into my arms. It's over, she whispered into my coat. They backed off. I know, I said, kissing the top of her head. I told you we'd handle it. We walked out of the airport together.
Thingsen.
Leaving the noise of the past behind us. The storm had passed, and for the first time in a long time, the only story that mattered was ours. Nora, Maeve, and the rest were just shadows in the rearview mirror now. And we were finally moving forward, into the light. This industry operates on nothing but smoke and mirrors, but you eventually have to call things by their real names. The brand finally backed off,
Realizing they were being played.
but that evening, she called me, and the sheer exhaustion in her voice tore me apart. I need you to handle this, Edward, she whispered. I simply cannot live under her shadow for one more day.
Either.
She stops this harassment, or we force her to stop. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder every time I step out the door. I'll take care of it, I promised, and I meant every word. That was when Ashley reappeared in my inbox. A notification popped up on Instagram. Hey, Edward. I heard from some mutual friends that Nora is still spiraling. I have even more messages between her and Brad if you need them.
Texting him again.
Desperate to reconnect. But she's telling everyone you two had a mutual amicable breakup and that she was the one who pulled the plug. I showed the messages to Melody. She looked so tired, her eyes dimmed by months of stress. Does this ever actually stop? She asked. It will, I said, though I was starting to realize I had to be the one to force the conclusion. 6 months after the reunion,
Venya.
had a high-profile campaign launch in the heart of the city. It was a major event, filled with industry elites and press. She invited me as her plusone. I almost declined, fearing Nora would inevitably find out, to let her control my life anymore. We arrived together, walking in with our heads held high. Halfway through the night, I saw them. Nora, Olivia, Natasha, and Meave, all 4 of them.
Farrant on the list.
Yet they had somehow talked their way past the security. I leaned in and whispered to Melody, keeping my voice low. She tensed up, her posture stiffening, but she kept her expression perfectly composed.
Succinct.
What do you want to do? She asked, her voice steady. Nothing, I said. They are only here to provoke a reaction, and we aren't giving them one. We moved to the opposite side of the room, mingling with guests and acting as if they didn't exist. but I could feel Nora's gaze burning into us from across the floor. Suddenly, Natasha made her move. She marched straight up to Melody with her phone raised.
Recording every second.
So, Melody, how does it feel to be a homewrecker? She sneered. Melody didn't flinch. She just looked at her with a calm that unnerved the group. You're going to want to leave, Melody said,
Firm.
her voice quiet but firm. I'm just asking a question. Natasha spat back. That was when Nora stepped up, invading Melody's personal space. You always did this, Nora said, her voice trembling not from nerves but from raw,
Boiling rage.
even back in high school, you'd just exist, and everyone would fall at your feet. You never had to try, never had to work for anything. You just showed up,
Fail.
and the world handed you everything on a silver platter. Salt Melody's face remained neutral, but I saw her jaw tighten as she held back her own anger. I don't know what you're talking about, Nora, Melody said coldly. Yes, you do, Nora screamed, drawing eyes from across the room. You made me feel invisible my entire life, and now you're doing it again. You took everything from me. I didn't take anything from you, Melody countered. You took him.
Voice finally cracked.
You knew we were together, and you swooped in just like you always do. I stepped between them, my heart rate slowing as I found my resolve. Calm, quiet, and absolutely firm.
Together.
I said, looking Nora dead in the eye. You cheated. And I left, and that happened long before Melody, and I even spoke. Nora's eyes snapped to mine, wild with denial.
You were already thinking about her.
She spat. You were just waiting for an excuse to dump me. You have 5 seconds to walk away before I call security, I said. You're being so dramatic, Edward, she scoffed.
First.
Their phrase she had used to gaslight me a dozen times. But this time, it didn't work. Natasha laughed nervously, still holding her phone up. You're not going to do anything? She taunted.
You who?
I pulled out my phone and dialed the head of security. I didn't break eye contact as I reported the situation. 2 men in suits were at our side in less than a minute. I explained the harassment, the fake accounts,
Vexed.
and the sabotage, showing the timestamps as proof. They escorted all 4 of them toward the exit. Nora tried to shout, but security silenced her instantly. Natasha tried to keep filming, but they blocked her phone.
Feed.
The whole ordeal lasted less than 3 minutes. Once they were gone, Melody let out a long, shuddering breath. That was intense, she whispered. They're done now, I said. How can you be so sure? Because Natasha just filmed security, removing them for harassment, and that is not the image she wants to portray. Maeve's brand is all about positivity, and Olivia's whole persona is being the victim. This doesn't fit their narrative.
Use it.
They'll turn on each other before the week is out. I was right. 3 days later, I received another message from Ashley. I thought you'd want to see this, she wrote. Natasha sent these to Brad.
Trying to get him to convince Nora to back off.
Brad showed me. Because has finally finished with all of them, and I thought you could use the ammunition. The screenshots were damning.
Fake-a-gee.
They showed the group chat where they had planned to crash the event. They proved they were behind the fake accounts. Maeve was admitting she was terrified the scandal would ruin her reputation.
Olivia was calling me controlling.
And Nora? She was lamenting how Melody stole her life. I read the messages twice, then I took 2 actions. First, I sent the screenshots to my building manager, with a note. People who have been harassing my partner and attempting to gain unauthorized access to our home. Please flag them as no entry. Second, I sent them to Connor with a single line.
Fend.
In case Olivia tries the victim narrative again. There was no public post, no social media war, and no drama. The trio of friends fractured within 48 hours. Natasha panicked first,
Deleting her posts.
and blaming Nora for dragging her into the mess. Maeve scrubbed her Instagram, posted some vague, inspirational nonsense, and distanced herself completely. Olivia tried to double down.
He was listening anymore.
Nora tried one last attempt. She showed up at my apartment building 2 weeks later. She buzzed the unit, but since she was flagged, the doorman called me instead of letting her up.
Found the lobby.
But I refused to let her inside. Edward, please, can we just talk? She begged. No, I said. 5 minutes. That is all I am asking, she pleaded. You don't get to ask me for anything, Nora.
That right, a year ago.
I made a mistake, and people make mistakes, she cried. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a series of choices for months, all while calling me boring to the man you were sleeping with.
That isn't a mistake, that is who you are.
That's not fair, she sobbed. You're right. It isn't fair to me. But I am done caring about what's fair to you. You need to leave. Are you really going to choose her over me?
He shrieked. I'm
Not choosing anyone over you, I said. I'm choosing myself over you. And there is a massive difference. She started to break down into tears. But as I turned away, I felt nothing but a profound sense of peace.
faced.
Then her face changed, and I knew it was finally over. Hey, Reddit. Have you ever realized that the person you gave your entire world to was just waiting for you to become a project they could renovate? My name is Edward. For 4 years, I was the supporting character in a movie where Nora was the only lead. I thought love was supposed to be a partnership, but Nora, to her, love was a leverage.
Use.
It was a cold November evening when the walls finally came down. I remember standing in the lobby of our apartment building, watching Nora pack the last of her belongings into a taxi. She turned to me, her eyes narrow,
Linked.
the classic manipulative flick of her hair signaling. She was about to make this my fault. You're really going to throw away 4 years, Edward, she sneered, because I decided to have a little fun while you were busy working?
Fragile.
I felt a strange, quiet calm wash over me. For years, I had shrunk myself to fit into the box she built for me. I looked at her, truly looked at her.
Fred, I wasn't seeing a partner. I was seeing a stranger.
I'm not throwing anything away, Nora, I said, my voice steady. I'm reclaiming what's left of my life. She started crying. The practiced.
Fears.
She used whenever she needed to guilt trip me into submission.
Yeah.
But this time, I didn't reach for her. I just watched. And then the most unsettling thing happened. The tears stopped instantly. Face shifted into that cold, hard mask I had seen 1,000 times during our arguments. You know, she whispered, stepping closer, we could have been something great if you'd only been more ambitious.
You hadn't been such a bore. If you'd just given me a reason to
Actually respect you. There it was, the blame, the classic stinging insult meant to keep me under her thumb. I didn't flinch. Instead,
vest.
I looked her straight in the eyes and mirrored her tone, the exact one she used when she ignored my feelings for months. You're being so dramatic, Nora, I said, repeating her favorite dismissive line back to her.
Face went completely white.
Seeing her own weapon turned against her was the exact shock she needed. Don't contact me again, I continued, feeling the weight lifting off my chest with every word. Don't show up here.
Don't send your friends to check on me.
You are done having access to my life. I walked back inside the building and didn't look back. The silence in the apartment wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. You might wonder,
Really moving on.
the truth is I had already found Melody. Melody wasn't a game player, while Nora spent our relationship comparing me to every successful guy on Instagram. He was the one who actually asked how my day was. When the industry pressure hit Mewen, I was drowning in deadlines and stress. Melody didn't call me weak. She showed up with coffee and an ear to listen.
Funds told me.
I'd never find anyone like her, and she was right. I didn't find anyone like her. I found someone better. People ask if I regret how I handled the breakup.
Fix.
They ask if I should have fought harder to save the relationship. My answer is always the same. You cannot fight for a person who has already decided you aren't worth the effort.
Ben.
You cannot offer forgiveness to someone who isn't sorry for what they did, but only sorry that they were finally caught. I have no regrets, just hard-earned lessons and a life that is finally truly my own. Guys,
Thanks.
we are so incredibly close to hitting that 100,000 subscriber milestone on this channel. If you've enjoyed this story and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that button. It genuinely helps us reach that dream,
ET.
and I'm so grateful to have you here for the journey. Thanks for being part of this community. I'll see you in the next one.